your brain says to you, if I don't get my drink or a drug, things are going to get really bad. Bad things are going to happen. I could even die. And I remember sitting there nodding along with that and thinking, yeah, no, that's exactly how I felt. Like, you know, when I was looking at the bottom of the pill bottle, when I was out of pills, nothing else mattered. Everything else was just, it was Charlie Brown. It was wah, 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 wah. Mm-hmm. My brain was about, you got to get that. You got to get those drugs. I think that food gets overlooked as an addiction. I think it's a big addiction.
Yeah.
I think, you know, you look around at people in our society and there's clearly a lot of people that are food addicts.
Absolutely. What I always tell people is you can have 100% success rate in any program because
Correct.
all they have to do is stay in the program for the 30 days, 60 days and not use. So that's 100%.
Right.
But real recovery happens when they leave the program.
Correct.
And any program with a solid continuing care plan is going to be the winner. This is the Recovery Guide podcast with Michael Herbert, where powerful stories and actionable insights empower individuals on their recovery journey to build resilience and make a lasting impact. I'm glad you're here, so let's get started. Today, we have Marc Kantor. I've known Marc for many years. Formerly, Marc was in real estate investments in New York. He became a certified intervention professional as a result of his own recovery and now does interventions nationally and internationally. Marc has helped thousands of people figure out how to go from active addiction to long-term recovery. This is going to be a great conversation. We're going to learn about intervention, what works, what doesn't work, how to be successful, giving yourself and your loved ones some practical tools, and how to make this work and how to be successful at it. So Marc, can you tell me, just share what your personal journey through addiction has taught you about resilience and the human spirit?
Yeah, you know, my personal journey is such that what I've gotten out of it, I didn't go in expecting this. I didn't know what to expect. You know, I went to treatment 21 years ago, and I had no idea about recovery, the recovery community, AA, any of the anonymous programs. I just knew that what I was doing had to end. It had to stop. It was, I looked at it at the time, I guess I still had some little sense about me. I looked at it from a business proposition and said, it's just a bad investment. You know, I spent a tremendous amount of time doctor shopping. It's a full-time job. It's expensive. My life is in shambles. I had lost my job. My wife was getting ready to divorce me. I had gained a ton of weight. My life was just in shambles. So when I was deposited into treatment 21 years ago, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what they were going to tell me. Was it you need a better diet, more exercise, things like that? I didn't know about the spiritual malady.
You know, I guess when I went to treatment, I really went for comfort. That my life was so uncomfortable. Okay, I'll go.
Right.
And they sent me to a 30-day program that fed me 3 meals a day, and all I had to do was walk from room to room. I said, this is great. I got a shower, I got a nice bed.
Right.
I had no idea what recovery was, although being in treatment, I felt good. And I liked how I felt. I didn't know where I was going or what I was doing, but I liked how I felt. And it was comfortable.
It takes the burden off, right? You know, you're in a container that you're not going to drink or use, so that hankering or that lust for a drink or a drug isn't there because you know you're not going to get it. You're in this protective container, and there's a little responsibility. You're not in charge of anything anymore, and you're just kind of. I think I like that too. You know, nobody was bothering me about the bills. My wife wasn't up my ass. I didn't have to, worry about work, which was going horribly anyway. You could just kind of exist in this comfortable container.
And, and I work in the field, right? And so I work with these clients who hate, I don't want to be here. They're so resistant. That was not my experience. I'm glad to be here. And it was maybe because I had hit that bottom and I realized there was nowhere else to go with using. And my active addiction, I just couldn't go any. I had hit
You're out of moves.
I hit the wall.
Yeah, you're out of moves.
And I'm done.
Yeah.
But reality hit after 30 days. For me, they said, Michael, we think you need extended care.
Yeah.
And so they put me in a program for 7 more months after that. And then I got that attitude that the clients that I had, I hate this place. I got to get out of here. But every time I would think about leaving, I would say, well, where am I going to go?
Where am I going?
Nobody's going to take me in.
And if as an interventionist, if I always feel like if I've done the right job, if I've done it correctly with the family in the time leading up to the intervention, that my response, that what I'm doing at the actual intervention is really a smaller role, but you have all those things in place where somebody's in treatment, they say I'm going to leave, but they already know they're not welcome home. They're not, all the escape hatches have been closed. I think for me, I was very anxious. I had a lot of anxiety when I got to treatment, depression, anxiety, a lot of shame, a lot of codependency, eating disorder, things like that. They asked that question, why are you here? And the answer was, I occasionally take more than prescribed, which was
Let me ask you something.
Yeah.
You said eating disorder. What was the eating disorder?
Binge eating disorder.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as a man, was that really addressed in treatment? Because it seems like women get eating disorder treatment and it's addressed, and men, especially overeaters, heavy people, it's almost like it's not even looked at as a problem. So a man can be big and fat,
right,
and it's not even addressed.
Right. No, that's true. I mean, look, if you're in treatment for 30 days, you don't have a whole lot of time to address all the issues.
And they're trying to fatten you up in treatment.
Well, from their perspective, you're no longer smoking crack, but you're eating dessert every meal. That's an improvement. Yeah. And I agree with that. Yeah. But for me, I wasn't eating, I was using food. And I think that's what a lot of people do. Their coping devices become maladaptive, right? You're not shopping for necessities, you're using.
Well, they call it comfort food.
Yeah.
So when you think about comfort food, when I'm lonely, how am I going to feel comfort?
Yeah.
Or let me get some pudding. Let me get some mashed potatoes, macaroni and cheese. Let me get some cereal.
Yeah. You never cut up a cucumber when you're feeling lonely. To this day, I've been sober over 21 years, and I've been abstinent from sugar for almost 15 years. But to this day...
Completely abstinent?
With the exception of fruit and, there are some things that have sugar in them, but, cake, candy, desserts, things like that.
I got to tell you, that is big. To get off... Because there's sugar in mustard. There's sugar in everything.
There's sugar in everything, yeah.
So it's hard to get away from sugar.
Yeah.
So that's I commend you on that one.
Thank you.
That's a big deal.
But again, I had come to a place where I was in the throes of my food addiction. I think that food gets overlooked as an addiction. I think it's a big addiction.
Yeah.
I think you look around at people in our society, and there's clearly a lot of people that are food addicts.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I'm a compulsive overeater, and had, when I realized at 55, I was eating like a 25-year-old. I'd get a whole pizza, and I had to finish it. I would save a slice for the morning.
For good measure.
But everything else needed to be gone.
Yeah. I could still do that. I was out to dinner last night with my family who they're, coming from our Eastern European Jewish background. There's no drinking or drugging. I was the black sheep of the family, but there is eating. There's workaholism and eating and some other things. But my sister ordered a pizza for the table. I could have eaten the whole pizza. I had one slice, and it does trigger the allergy. It does, because I do love that. I love bread and butter. That is my drug of choice. And to this day, I was about to say, and I've been absent a long time, is that when I have an emotion I don't like, the first thing I think about is what can I put in my mouth.
And you're right. Food is a trigger because we have to eat.
You have to eat, yeah.
And
it's acceptable in society. You're not going to. There's no drive-through that you can pick up an 8-ball.
Just on a side note, I've had cancer, I've had bunion surgery, I've had total knee replacement, and all of those surgeries required pain medication and opiate. I have never needed more of the opiate. I took it as prescribed, and that was it.
Yeah.
I feel so much empathy for addicts or people with addiction problems whose drug of choice was an opiate,
right?
And now, just like you have to eat, have to take an opiate,
right? They're having where a painkiller, not having a painkiller, it's not an option. Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah,
it's really.
I can imagine the struggle that person has to go. That was different than mine. I know a drug is a drug is a drug.
Yeah,
and I could probably get addicted to opiates, but it's really not my thing.
Yeah.
So I've never been exposed to it over long term.
Right.
And these operations didn't cause me to go out.
Right.
But there's so many people that have to take them.
Right.
And there's so much precaution you have to take around those medications.
Right. And I've seen this before with people, and I think the important thing is that you're talking about it. It could be an issue. You're talking about it in your meetings. You're talking about it with people that are close to you, with your sponsor, whoever your network is. It's out in the open. It's not like, it's not being hidden, and it's not in the closet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So let me, I have a couple more questions that I wanted to ask you.
Go ahead.
So what is the biggest misconception people have about interventions in how they impact families in crisis? What are the misconceptions?
Well, I think the big misconception of interventions is that it's going to turn into a prison riot, that the person we're intervening on is going to rip the cabinets off the wall. And, that rarely happens. Most people are more hesitant, there's a little bit more fear. They come into the room, they see the family sitting there, they see me, they don't know me. They're more hesitant to engage in a fight. And, but I also train the family in advance that I can tell you right now, he or she's not going to like the intervention. If you think there's a scenario here that we have a scenario here that they're going to come in and they're going to come in and say, "Oh, thank God you're here. This is fantastic. Tell me where I'm going to treatment." It's not going to happen. The expectation is that they're going to come in and they're going to be unhappy about it, right? I mean, their brain has been rewired for their dependency on a drug, which they think now is their solution. You think is the problem. You're going to take away their solution. They are going to have a visceral reaction to that. But rarely has it been quite what people imagined. And I say, look, if they come in and they have a reaction, let them have the reaction. If they come in and they scream and they yell and they carry on, or they cry, or they lay on the floor, or they curse everyone out, let them do it. And I teach people to kind of sit in a de-escalating position. hands folded, feet flat on the floor, sitting upright, kind of, nodding. Let them have that reaction. Show them we're hearing what they're saying. We hear you. We understand this is a big deal, that you're upset. You may feel betrayed. You may feel all these things. We are going to allow you to have space to have that reaction and let it pass. And whatever that takes, it takes. And then eventually they sit down and they're ready to listen.
So how do you navigate the emotional dynamics during the intervention? And what role does the family play in a successful intervention? So you talked about some of it, but yeah.
Yeah. So, one of the questions I get a lot is, how are you going to get my son to go to treatment? And the answer is, I'm not, you are. I'm here to help change the environment around your son. Mm-hmm. That means you. And some people say, well, I don't get it. And I'll say, well, have you ever had a dog? And they'll say, yeah, of course I've had. You ever have a dog trainer? Yeah. Well, the dog trainer is not really training the dog, are they? Well, not really. They're changing the environment around the dog, and then the dog's behavior. Not to call your kid a dog or say your kid's as simple as a dog, but the behavior's not far off.
And the trainer is also training you.
They are training you. That's why
you have to do the work.
You have to do the work.
And oftentimes people want to pay you
to make the problem
for
go
you
away.
To fix it and make it better.
And I can't.
And they're the ones that have to do the work because they're the ones that have all the influence.
Correct. The person we're intervening on doesn't know me. They don't care about me. Mm. And even when interventions go really well, like it's a textbook intervention, it's, I had good rapport with the person. I transported them to treatment. We spent hours on the plane together. We talked with. Usually I'm not seeing that person again. Usually at some point they'll associate me with, well, my life was good until you got here. You're the impetus for why my wife is hired the divorce attorney, or my parents cut off the credit card or took away the car. But the truth is, those things have been going on for a long time. I'm the disruptor. Mm-hmm. I came into your life and disrupted those patterns. But the shit show was there a long time before I got there. And you're right. It's the family that has to do. I'm here to advise you. Here are the options. What do you want to do? Let me tell you the pros and cons of each option. Let me tell you the pros and cons if your wife goes to treatment in South Florida and she's an Uber ride away, compared to if she goes to treatment in Utah and she's a 4-hour plane ride away. Like what are the pros and cons of all of that?
Yeah, I often tell people, my wife hired you, and I said, no, you created this. Mm-hmm. Everything you have done was part of the invitation for me to show up.
Right.
If you hadn't done X, Y, do you think I would be here? Mm-hmm. If you didn't lose your job, if you didn't spend all your money, if you didn't wind up in jail or have the car accident, I never would have been here.
Right.
So you have created this scenario. Why don't you take responsibility for it so we can move further so we don't have to do this again?
Right. And that makes sense to you and me sitting here right now, and it makes sense to the family. Mm-hmm. But to the person whose brain has been completely altered by their drug use or their alcohol use or whatever it is, food use, gambling, gaming, sex, whatever it is, their brain now sees that thing that we're intervening on, or that one, at the moment is probably they see it as this is one thing, right? Mm-hmm. The drink, and it's just the drink. But their brain is now wired to believe that drink is the key to their survival. And if we take it away, they literally say to themselves, how are they going to survive? I remember when I was in treatment that a guy come and speak who was the former flight surgeon for the Blue Angels. He used to go by the handle, the addiction doctor. I know he's with the Meadows now. And he talked about, and I was really new. I was raw. I was probably 72 hours sober, if that. And he said, your brain says to you, if I don't get my drink or a drug, things are going to get really bad. Bad things are going to happen. I could even die. And I remember sitting there nodding along with that and thinking, yeah, no, that's exactly how I felt. Like, when I was looking at the bottom of the pill bottle, when I was out of pills, nothing else mattered. Everything else was it was Charlie Brown. It was wah, 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 wah. Mm-hmm. My brain was about, you got to get that. You got to get those drugs.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you, with your past work with VersaPoint, what unique challenges do executive men facing mental health and addiction, what are maybe some of the differences than the general population that they experience?
Well, I think one, that successful people, man and woman, people who've accomplished, we see a lot of very accomplished people in our work, people that have they've been to Ivy League schools, they've been the best of the best, they're the best in their field, they've achieved this high success, and a lot of that, their ability to achieve this high success is because they are disciplined, controlling, and somewhat narcissistic people, right? They have the ability to put other things on the side to say, I'm not going to focus on family, or I'm not going to focus on XYZ. I'm going to focus on my work because my goal is to be successful. They're used to being in control. So having them cease that control for just a minute to let some other ideas in is very difficult for them. And it's very difficult for them to understand that the same talent and skills that it took to be successful professionally are not the skills that are necessary to be successful personally, to overcome an addiction, to win their family back. I had a guy once, multi-million-dollar a year earner, who would say, well, I want to be able to whisk my wife off in the private jet to Grand Cayman. I want her, and she's not happy about that, and she doesn't want to do that, and I don't understand why that's not appealing to her. And I said, the answer is she doesn't care. She doesn't care. She's not 21. This is not, she didn't meet you on a dating show. So yeah, maybe the first couple of times you whisk her off on a private jet to the islands for the weekend are exciting, but it's no longer exciting. What she wants is you to be home and be present and do the little things that are not such big important things in the scheme of the world, but are important to her and the family. She's no longer impressed with your financial success. She wants you to be successful at home personally.
Yeah. And one of the other things that I realized, I worked at, some high-end programs with executives. I have noticed and experienced from them some relief when they now have someone giving them direction, that they don't have to run the show, that somebody tells them no, because they have all of these yes men around them. They have a distorted kind of view of life and how the world works because everyone agrees with them.
Yeah.
Everyone co-signs what they do.
Yeah.
And when you have somebody that'll challenge them, I don't have to do it all, because they do have a lot of pressure because they're feeling responsible for everyone.
Yeah, and if they don't stay on top, the chain of command breaks and they're going to lose respect and all that nonsense. One of the most fascinating things I ever heard was Bernie Madoff was interviewed when he was in prison, and he said that he was, the happiest he'd ever been. And the guy interviewing him, I don't understand, how is that possible? And he said, because I don't control anything anymore. The jig is up. I'm not having to move the pieces on the board. I just can exist.
Yeah.
And he said, obviously, I'm very sad about, a lot of things, but I'm also relieved at the same time. Yeah.
Can you describe a particular challenging case where you've encountered and how you approached it differently than others?
Yeah, there are many different examples of that. And now that I sit here thinking about it, a lot of that comes back to the family work, right? That the family is, if we've done our work right up front, then the intervention should be fairly smooth. It's when the family starts to break from the pact, or they start to sabotage the intervention while the person's in treatment. They start to send them money. We had a case recently where the dad sent the kid $1,200, and we're like, $1,200? You know, one, that could kill him. I mean, for the least of it is, we could get, gives them the resources to walk out of treatment, and two, it could kill him. Those are very hard to deal with. But again, we're in a situation where we can advise you, and we can tell you what you're doing is wrong, and we do, and we're pretty straight up about it. But you're the one making those decisions if you do that. We've had situations where we've had families say, one in particular I'm thinking of, we don't think it's working out in treatment for our kid. We weren't going to bring him home. And where we'll get on the phone with parents, say, do not do that. This is a particularly dangerous situation. We'll move them. We'll find another place. Not that we don't believe in the treatment center we placed them in, but sometimes it's not a fit. That happens. Sometimes it's just not working out there. Let's do something different. And the parents, no, we're gonna drug test them. We're gonna keep them on no, you're not.
And everything about that whole scenario you're talking about is that parent is saying, you know what, my son or daughter is a loser. They can't do anything on their own. We always have to swoop in. We always have to do for them. He gets a magic, what is it, $1,200? For doing nothing. How did he earn that? He just got it because he's their son, because he wanted it?
Right.
How do you think that affects his self-esteem?
It is damaging to his self-esteem.
And people don't even see that, and they're saying, oh, my son or daughter cannot deal with any discomfort. So we have to make life absolutely comfortable for them.
We have so many of those. I mean, so many of those where the parents are just enabling left and right. They're afraid to implement consequences because the kid has said, I'll threaten to kill themselves, which is largely a manipulation, or what will happen. And, you're killing them now. I have a phenomenal family coach who's been with me a long time, and she'll say, he's going to kill himself anyway. The question you need to answer is, do you want to be part of that? Do you want to participate in that?
And Mom, Dad, how did you get to your success? Well, I had to do this. I had to do that. So why don't you want for your son or daughter the same thing? Why can't they emulate what you did versus I want to make it easier for them? Okay, what's the benefit in making it easier for them?
I think the difference is, if I look at like my dad's generation and the stories that he tells, his parents were never going to enable him or make it easy for him. It wasn't a choice. It wasn't an option. They didn't have the money. They didn't have the resources. They didn't know what that looked like. They came here from the war. It was about survival. But fast forward, my mom said, well, we don't want our kids to go through what we went through. We want their lives to be better. And, they inadvertently rob you of your struggle.
Yeah, my mother was like, I want your life to be better, but you're going to have to earn it.
Right, she's right.
I have nothing to give you other than, supporting you and moving forward and doing what you're doing. But she, at 18, you're out. You got to go start your life and do your thing. She let me stay till 19. But those were some of the best gifts because I had to figure some things out. I don't have to figure everything out, but
you had
there was
to grow.
some basic stuff that I had to figure out. Like if you don't pay the electric bill, the electricity goes off.
Right.
If you don't save your money, you can't put money in the gas tank and you can't drive anywhere, or you're going to have to walk. I don't want to walk.
There's something about our generation. I'm a Gen Xer. I think you are too. Is that our kids, which is the Z generation, and maybe some of the older millennials, but the Z generation is that they just have us so whipped.
But I got to tell you, even in the field, when I first started in the field, I took every course that I could take. I volunteered for almost everything to learn more. And I hate to sound like my grandparents, but young people today have all of these boundaries, have all of this, I need to, this, that, and the other. And they did not or don't get the experience that I got through, kind of hustling out there, trying to learn stuff. I would go to psychodrama and all kinds of courses just to learn it, and it would be on my time, and no one had to pay me to do it.
Yeah. Well, not only have parents robbed current kids of their struggle, culture has robbed.
Culture, absolutely.
Yeah. And I use this example a lot. When I was a kid, if I wanted to go out with a girl, I had to pick up the phone, which was nailed to the wall, call her. Her mom would answer. God forbid her dad answered. I'd have to talk to her mom.
Yeah.
The mom would then decide, am I going to go get her, put her on the phone. Then I'd have to talk to her, and I literally would have to ask her out, and she'd hopefully say yes or no or whatever. And then I'd have to go to her house in person, ring the doorbell, go in and get her, and talk with her parents, and then go out on the date. None of this texting from the car. But what's interesting about that is, even though that sounds like a trite example, it was teaching skills.
Absolutely.
You want something, you need to go out and get it, right? Instead of this, sliding into someone's DMs and texting, here, I'm, the car, and, but, the other example I give was, what my friends and I had to do to get our hands on a single lousy Playboy magazine, which was completely benign in hindsight, the hoops we had to jump through and to procure a single magazine that was then traded around the neighborhood compared to, what kids do now. It's in their back pocket.
It's in their back. I mean, it is so easy to get anything.
Yeah.
That it's hard to earn your way through life anymore.
Yeah.
That everything is just magically, just go online and it's right there.
And by the way, what we were looking at in that magazine 30 years ago was fairly benign, but the stuff they're seeing today on the phone and pornography, it's fairly horrific stuff. And they then grow up thinking that this is what real sex is.
Well, and everything's
not
perfect too.
Everyone looks like that, and everyone performs, and it's not true.
And most of the viewers aren't living up. They don't look like what they're looking at.
Right.
And so the insecurities that a person experiences, I'm not like the man or the woman that was in the video. So I can't.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get rejected because everyone else is looking for that, and I don't have that.
Well, and also they've now, that's their expectation of what sex is or relationships are, but they've skipped the whole piece of courting, that communication, and I'm hearing this more and more.
Developing a relationship, developing intimacy. So it's easy to just, like they say, hit it and quit it. If you don't have any relationship, you can just move on to the next and the next, and you create an unfulfilling life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And from what I hear, I hear parents tell me all the time, and I'll ask, does he have a girlfriend or any relationships with girls? And a lot of times they'll be like, no, never, ever. He doesn't know how to talk to a girl.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let me just ask you, as someone that has been both sides of the intervention process, what advice would you give families who feel helpless in facing a loved one's addiction?
Yeah. Well, good question. That there is help out there. There are people out there that know what they're doing, and that's what we do. And I tell people, we're, for lack of a better term, we're project managers. And I give this example to families all the time. if you wanted to go to Beijing, you could call United Airlines or American Airlines. They'll get you to Beijing. That's not a problem. You can get there pretty easily. But you get off the plane, you're screwed. Because now you're emotional, you're tired, you're discombobulated, you don't speak the language. Nothing makes sense to you. We're there when you get off the plane. We get you right off the plane. We tell you, we've already got your luggage. We know that you're tired. We know that you need to eat. We know which restaurant we're going to take you to. We know what hotels are good. We manage the process for you. I like to tell people that we are a crisis to solution organization. We are out there. We can help. But look, you don't know what you don't know. And the internet is a huge pitfall for families because there's a lot of companies out there that spend millions and millions of marketing dollars every month to appear to everyone like we're the perfect fit for you. Yes, we have eating disorder, we have a track for that. Sexual assault issue, we have a track for this. And while they may have a quote unquote track for that, it may not be what they're known for, or it may not be a place you want to send your kid.
Yeah, there's so many places now who seem to do so much, it almost feels watered down. When you look at it, okay, it makes sense. But if I can look at it from where I came from, a 30-day program, back then it was called chemical dependency. We worked on chemical dependency. There were some specialty groups where they touched on things. Even because I know trauma is this big thing now. Even with trauma, how much work is a person ready to do
in their first 30?
In their early phases of recovery?
They're not. Yeah.
But everyone is pushing it. There are people who are really good clinicians who do trauma work. They have these trauma intensives. Now, I don't know, if someone has 3 or 4 years into recovery and really wants to work and is ready to do the work, I think it's great.
Absolutely.
But when you're pulling somebody out of treatment after 90 days, come to my trauma intensive and we can... I don't know that the majority of people are really ready for that.
No, I agree with you.
And I think sometimes in the field, professionals take advantage of people that aren't really ready for the work that they're proposing to those people.
Right. They're casting a wide net to make the phone ring, and that's a marketing thing. But I will say that, what I think for us as consultants and advisors have to say, parents call or family call, well, my guy's been in treatment, 30 days, and he is not taking responsibility for what he did 2 years ago. Where he is now is medically good results. He's gone from using drugs or drinking every day to he hasn't had a drink in 20 days, and he's just learning. I mean, this is at best a year-long process.
Yeah, but the thing is, treatment does save lives.
It does.
Because if we can take those people off the street at that exact time and they didn't stay out there, that 30-day period, who knows what would have happened in that 30-day period if they didn't go to treatment. They could have had an overdose, a fatal accident, anything bad. So treatment gives them one more opportunity. So whether it's the greatest program, the most expensive, the cheapest, the not so great program, treatment does work to help people. Let me ask you my last question because
I want to say that I always tell people that the only guarantee against a fatal overdose is abstinence.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Abstinence
is the key to recovery.
Absolutely.
I was talking about this earlier to you, and it's always a dilemma that I have when I'm referring people to treatment. So I talk to people in business development. They tell me about their program. They work they work at this great program. The program offers this, the program offers that. And then 3 months later, that same person is now working at another program telling me the same thing. So how do you navigate in finding the programs and working with the people who are kind of talking about the program to really get the best ones?
I think we started talking about it at the beginning. It's about trust, right? I only work with people I trust. You only work with people you like. So, this was posed to me recently by someone that runs a failure to launch young adult men's program. And they mentioned 4 other programs, and they said, how do you choose between us and those 4 other programs? And I said, it's a good question, because all those programs, including his, those are good programs. And if I take a kid off the street and I put him in one of those programs and they follow the direction and the families, they're going to benefit. They're going to do well. What differentiates why I send someone here or there? I mean, sometimes I get a sense that, like, this kid's a skier, so let's get him somewhere in Colorado or Utah, or this kid's a surfer, let's get him somewhere in California. But it's the relationship I have with those people. Economics, insurance, there are other factors. Getting the family on the phone with the people that run that program, they feel like there's a connection or there's something special there. But largely, they're all good programs. You're not going to make a mistake. If you put all 5 of those on the wall and threw a dart at it, it's probably not a bad decision. You're not going to get a bad result.
Well, because the truth is, there are people will try to tell you that they have an XYZ success rate, and they're all about the same. That I don't know that there's any huge difference in a lot of programs. What I always tell people is, you can have 100% success rate in any program, because
Correct.
all they have to do is stay in the program for the 30 days, 60 days, and not use. So that's 100%.
Right.
But real recovery happens when they leave the program.
Correct.
And any program with a solid continuing care plan is going to be the winner.
Well,
and that's what you have to look for.
I think the key to that is you got to look at the people that traditionally do very well long term, and that's airline pilots, doctors, professionals that have mandated recovery programs, long term, 5 years, where they're literally if they're caught drinking again, they'll never fly again, they'll never practice medicine again. There's random UAs.
Well, they have regular UAs.
Yeah.
Random is once in a while here and there. Doctors and pilots get a UA every day because it'll be a deterrent. I know I'll get caught. Random, sometimes people try to figure out the system.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. They try to game the system. But there is very good recovery in among those people.
And actually, if more programs would invest in that type of care, you're going to get a higher success rate, because doctors and pilots do have the highest success rate of all fields. It's because of that, and it's not because doctors and pilots are smarter than anybody else.
No,
that they're put in a system that works.
Right, they're kept in a container.
Yeah.
But you get a program that invests all kinds of money and has all kinds of great ideas. If the family does not actively support that and engage in that, it's just not going to be there.
And that's why engaging the family in a program like doctors and pilots, because the family is the patient and the patient is the family.
Absolutely.
They are all equal in the process, because they all have experienced the devastation of addiction. And if the family doesn't get treated for how they've been affected,
right,
they're just walking around wounded with this client who may or may not make it.
Right.
You want to bring families together? Well, how you bring them together is, let's join them in the recovery process together, not just at Thanksgiving.
Right. You got to go in through the family. I was recently asked by a caller. The mom said, "Do you want to talk to my son?" And I said, "No, not really. Our model is to go in through the family." And she said, "Okay, I understand." Yeah, I had no interest in engaging him before we had the family on board. What do you think I'm gonna? He's been drinking for 10 years, and I'm gonna have a 15-minute conversation with him, and he's gonna see Jesus, and it's not gonna happen.
Well, I want to make sure he likes you.
Yeah, well, he may not.
Yeah.
And that's right. And if he does like me, there might be something. If he likes me too much, I do want people to like me, and it's really nice when I get a client that'll come back to me after treatment and say, "Hey, you know what? I was a jerk during the intervention or whatever, but thank you." And I'm like, "Oh, that's really nice to hear." But most of the time, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
That's why the model is around the family.
Yeah.
That's what's effective.
All right.
So, well, this was great.
Marc, this was great. Great having you here.
Yeah.
Hope to have you again.
Yeah. No, I could. We could talk forever. So.
Yeah.
So many topics.
Yeah. Listen, I have actually 1,000 other things that I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
So maybe we can get this going again.
I would love to do that. That'd be awesome.
Great.
That'd be awesome. Thanks for having me.
This episode is sponsored by Guardian Recovery. If you or someone you love is struggling with addiction or mental health challenges, Guardian can help. Visit guardianrecovery.com or call the number below for confidential support and guidance.